Karabuni, welcome to IP Global's review of the Portuguese property market, and also looking at the Citizenship by Investment program as well. So, Karabuni, again, thank you for joining us. And if you're in Kenya or East Africa or further afield, you're absolutely welcome. Just want to introduce the panel that we have here today. We have William Page, who's the head of Middle East and Africa for IP Global, and myself, Andrew Salmon, the head of Kenya for IP Global. Just to give you a brief background on myself, I've got 18 years of experience in real estate investment. I help my clients get international finance, as well as sourcing the best value propositions globally. Originally from the UK, from Surrey, which is just outside of London, more in the countryside. I've been in Kenya since 2009, where I've been helping clients here find value in property, and now I help my clients find value in the global property markets. So welcome very much, thank you very much indeed. And let me, Will, you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, no, yeah, sure, Andrew. Thank you, and thank you everybody for joining us. Yeah, I've been in property for a long time. I'm a surveyor and been with IP Global for over 7 years. So, no, it's good to be here today and joining Andrew to help present today's webinar. So just a few nuts and bolts in terms of the software in front of you. You should have a questions box in front of you that Andrew will be able to see. So it is very challenging for Andrew to work through those as we present. So we will do that, but we will then deal with those questions at the end. I think is the best thing to do. So please do fire them in. And yeah, what we're going to do just in terms of the format, we'll both be speaking to you throughout, and we're going to try and aim to sort of wrap up in about 30 minutes. So yeah.
Super, great. So in terms of, I'll let Will let you explain a bit more about IP Global.
Yeah, I'll take over on this slide, Andrew. Thank you very much. So thanks for flicking forward. Yeah, so look, I mean, IP Global is a big business, and we're here to talk to you today about Portugal. But I think it's important that we do cover a little bit about who IP Global are just for a few minutes. So we're headquartered out of Hong Kong. We've been founded since 2005. So we've been around a long time, and we're one of the market leaders in helping international investors access different property markets across the globe. You'll see on the right-hand side there's some images of our kind of target markets for the year of the challenging year of 2020. But we continue to see a lot of value in these markets and a lot of opportunity in all of these cities, strong destinations for investment even during tough times. In terms of sort of the company and how the company works, Andrew will talk to you on the next slide a little bit about the processes that we go about putting in place to help our clients invest into these different countries and different cities.
Super, thanks very much, Will. So just to explain what IP Global do, we don't sell anything to do with property funds or trusts. It's very much a direct purchase investments. And we are able to provide professional advice in terms of international financing, recommending lawyers, as well as managing that property in rental collection and so on. So every property that we offer to market, high levels due diligence, end-to-end service, and very much sort of a hassle-free, fully managed property services handling all aspects. I'm based here in Nairobi, and able to meet and advise clients here and across the region. So in terms of IP Global's business model, Will, did you want to touch on this?
Yeah, I think it's important that every successful business has a USP, and I think at IP Global we our founder, our chairman, Tim Murphy, in the early days, sort of stumbled across a very successful business model, and that is that we underwrite. So we are, although today we're talking to you about residency and things like that, but it is investment as well. and primarily we're making investment decisions for ourselves and our clients, and we are underwriting projects and bringing those to market. So what that means is that we have a heavily based research team, investment team that scour the globe and scour different low risk property markets and look for opportunities in these markets. If we can find something compelling and that we think is going to add value to our clients' portfolios, and ultimately that is going to steadily grow in value whilst bringing in a sustainable rental yield, then we will actually look to underwrite. And what that means is that we buy the scheme in bulk. We commit financially and legally to buying a project. So an example might be a scheme we have in Portugal. It's 100 apartments. IP Global could come and buy 30, 40, 50, or the whole scheme from the developer. So we offer the developers a de-risk, and we offer, and for doing that, obviously we're able to get a discount from market value. So we've very much got skin in the game. By operating this model, we can offer our clients access to investments that can achieve higher than average returns. And we're quite lucky, we're quite flexible, we're quite nimble. So it's not like we need to buy a piece of land and get the planning and begin to build the site out and 3 years on tell clients it's the best thing that they can invest in, because ultimately the world moves quite quickly. So we're quite lucky that we're independent, and if we see value in a city and a country in a city and an area of a city, we can fairly quickly, with all the research we need to do, we can source product in those markets. So I think that's key. And IP Global only makes money when our clients successfully invest and get through the whole process of buying in a property. So we're there throughout the process to guide our investors through the legal side of the purchase, through any potential mortgage applications and challenges, right through to obviously renting the apartment and managing that, which we do. So yeah, that's a strong slide for us there.
Excellent, thanks very much, Will. So this doesn't really need too much explaining, but it sort of speaks for itself. We've got a very big track record, and we've helped transact on about 5,500 apartments globally since 2006. So I'll just move on. Actually, a big part of property investing is the management of the asset and collecting the rent and managing it properly. And this is why we have our own company called Complete, which manage more or less all the properties that we sell to our investors. Has an incredibly strong track record. Again, 98.4% average across about 1,600 properties that we manage across all markets. So I want to talk a bit more about, just because it's not very common in Kenya and other parts of Africa to borrow. It's quite difficult, and the lending rates are quite high compared to the markets in the Eurozone. So in the UK, you can international lending. This is what we get for our clients here who are African based, buying into the UK. Rates from 3.75% over a 25-year term, and in Germany from 2% over a 30-year term, and in Portugal, interestingly, 1.8%. So incredibly good value lending options for our clients, and this really helps when it comes to gearing a property investment and getting the maximum value out of your return on equity. Just to also compare against Kenya, Uganda, and South Africa, you can see that they're sort of double-digit interest rates, and typically they don't go more than 15 years generally. So when you do stretch it out over a 30-year term, it becomes a lot more affordable in terms of the repayment. So to sort of explain the mortgage proposition, they are the lowest levels right now, and they will remain to be that way for the foreseeable future. So there's also a lot of our lenders, they have no penalty for early repayment, which is beneficial. When if you want to pay off that mortgage sooner rather than later, then there's no penalty to do that. And the maximum leverage they were able to achieve is 65% very comfortably and 70% as well. So this is Portugal. It's actually a lovely slide of a picture of Porto. It's a very beautiful country, great climate, and lots of history actually. So Will, you've been to Portugal, and how did you find it there?
You were just breaking up a bit there, Andrew, but no, it's a stunning country. It has a lot to offer in terms of culture, but in terms of investment as well, it's very interesting because Portugal had a tough financial crisis, like many countries in the world, but it's one of the few that's kind of bounced back out of trouble. So in terms of sort of what they managed to do to get out of the financial crisis, there was a big bailout from the European Central Bank and the IMF, about 80 billion euros, but they've now paid that back. So whereas you've got other countries that had a bailout, which would include, say, Italy and Greece, these countries and Spain, they're still in big trouble. Whereas Portugal has been quite clever with the way that it's restructured its economy, which we're going to come on to in the coming slides. But great country, a lot of history, with the oldest country in Europe, and effectively also with some good economic fundamentals, which are why IP Global are there ultimately. There is a citizenship by investment benefit to investing in the country, but ultimately we're there because it makes sense to buy property for investment purposes.
Excellent. Let me go to the next slide, and really just sort of show the power of Portugal. So Portugal it's on right on the sort of westerly side of Europe, right next to Spain, and it's one of the oldest nations. It's, as Will just said, experiencing very strong economic recovery since the global financial crisis in 2009, and it's a very politically stable, strong country. Just to give you some highlights then on Portugal, the population is 10.5 million people, very long sort of average life expectancy, about 81 years old. Portuguese is the 5th most spoken language globally, and also they speak. You can operate there, and most people do speak English, so it's very easy to do business and conduct business there. The climate's fantastic, very temperate, Mediterranean weather, and it's very affordable to live. And one of the main things why we like the country is because it's very politically strong, very stable. One of the major things that everyone needs to talk about right now is just how well it's been doing since, during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think if we look at Portugal, it's probably the most exemplary response from any government across the Eurozone or globally. They had their first case on the 2nd of March. They declared a total lockdown after they registered 100 cases. And this has really helped massively Portugal in terms of managing the pandemic, and also mitigating, and also they're now being able to reopen their economy again to levels that haven't been seen in other countries. So in terms of Portugal's investment in public health over the last 5 years, they've got very strong health service, which has helped, I think, an awful lot. 13% increase in national health workers over the last 5 years. They've spent 18% more in government spending in health, so 1.6 billion euros. And they have their hospital bed capacity. So in terms of the government economic response, they have a 9.2 billion stimulus package, which is now to drive the economy going. Will, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I think part of the reason why they've had a good response to the pandemic, a bit like Germany, is that they have they invested quite heavily into their healthcare sector. So, you know, that's one of the key things that's positioned them sort of above other countries in terms of how they've been managing to handle the pandemic. So yeah, I think it's important to note what's going on there for sure.
Excellent. So let's move on to the next slide. We're going to be focusing on the two major cities in Portugal. Lisbon, of course, is the capital, and then Porto, which is the second biggest city. They are cities that that we really like because of the excellent property fundamentals and really the macro micro behind them. It's extremely strong. The way the government has positioned them and moving these economies forward. It also creates a really good property market. So in terms of Portugal, Lisbon, it's the business and economic hub. It accounts for 1/3 of the national GDP. Portuguese economy has exceeded the Eurozone's average GDP for the last few years, boosting both international and domestic demand. Unemployment rate has dropped from a 17-year low to 7.2, that was last year. So, you know, from before they went into the pandemic, they were extremely good position. Fast growing technology and startup scene. They have something called the Web Summit, which happens in Lisbon every year. It's the largest technology conference in the world. And last year alone, they raised $105 million in venture capital. And actually, to explain that, they raised 100. Before that, in the last 5 years, they'd only raised 110. So you can see the huge jump in startup technology companies, which are really the future of business going forward. So that's a really good indication for us, looking at why it's got a future-proof economy. So it's got a low cost of living and a really high quality of life. And we see Lisbon really represents very good value for us. So on to the next slide, which this is to talk about Porto, which is the second largest city. It accounts for 29.4% of Portugal's GBA, and it has got very low unemployment. Lots of international companies are present. It's one of the best startup-friendly cities in Europe, and Europe's third fastest growing technology hub. Also, it has a very large student population as well. The University of Portugal is a very big one. A lot of our clients actually have children that go there. So yeah, the population increasing about 2% over the same period, from 2011 to 2009. So when we look at properties and markets to invest in, we're looking at population growth as well as vacancy rates and which industries that predominantly are in those markets.
Yeah, I think you're right, Andrew. Those are the key things that we look at. If we see a city that's seeing population growth and job creation, they normally come hand in hand. And we're seeing a city that has a modern economy that has quite a lot of tech, quite a lot of sort of service-based industries. This is a very compelling investment case for us. And then when we obviously see unemployment tumbling down over the years, we know that there is the affordability there that people can buy property. And I think the key thing when you're investing in property is investing in a place where investors are willing to buy, but also where residents are employed, where residents are buying, where residents can afford to buy, where residents' salaries are on the rise, and all of these things, especially the latter there in terms of salaries, all of these things are in place in Portugal as a whole.
Yeah, excellent. I think with next slide, just quickly to touch on it, is that the euro against the US dollar over the last 10 years. I think you can see from the graph that it's also, I think it's a great time to buy into the euro, and by buying into Portugal, you're buying into the euro as well. So we see more growth in that. So in terms of the Golden Visa program, it's an excellent program, which so you can buy a property in Portugal, and now it sort of fast tracks you into now obtaining Portuguese residence and citizenship, but via investment. So it's great for people that want a second passport, they want to travel a bit easier, or they want their children to go to university in Europe, pay less fees on education. Also, there's opportunities for healthcare, as well as just ease of traveling. So the Golden Visa program helps with doing that. It's been working very well. The total investment that's been made because of the Golden Visa program in Portugal has been 5.1 billion euros. 8,288 resident permits have been issued as of January 2020. And in resident permits issued, that counting family members from the main applicant, is 14,000. So in terms of the Golden Visa program, it's not just the person applying, your spouse, your children under the age of 18, and also dependents, so parents that are over the age of 65 will also qualify in one application.
Yeah, I think, Andrew, just to sort of, while we've got that page up there, I mean, it's considered one of the best routes into citizenship in Europe. It's one of the most cost effective. It's one of the most popular, but it won't last forever. I think there have been rumours that they would eventually begin to pull the program, but there is so much money coming in. So, we couldn't say with COVID around and with unknowns that this would be around forever. So I think the other thing to bear in mind is that when we say dependents, normally that means children, and your children are sadly only children for so long before they become adults. So, if your children are in their teenage years, you need to quite quickly move ahead, because otherwise, once they're not dependent on you, then you cannot obviously bring them into the program as well. So it's something that I think people are looking at very seriously, and there's a lot of speed behind people acting on this at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the next slide actually explains a bit more, just what's happening with the Golden Visa. And actually, since the beginning of the year, we've had investment almost triple. So 146 million has been invested in May this year. 50 million euros recorded in May 2019. So I've also, passports have been issued to people that have applied for the Golden Visa. So it does work, and we're able to advise and also help you talk to the right people to get this on.
Yeah, that's the key. I think that's the key. Is when you're dealing with something like this, you're investing a lot of money, and you need trusted partners. And we've been through the process, and we know the trusted partners. We've got the lawyers involved, and you'll see that effectively, if you follow us and our guidance and our connections, then after 5 years, you have the options here that are clearly in front of you. So the key thing is use a trusted partner, somebody that can support you throughout, and also make sure you buy quality, because there are schemes, in my opinion, there are properties, in my opinion, that aren't the best investments because of the program, and that's where we come into this, and we look for the investment angle and the best properties that we can secure that may bring the benefit if the client's need of the visa.
Absolutely. I think the next slide actually shows you a bit more about, there are actually two opportunities with getting the Golden Visa program. There's the Golden Visa program when you buy a property over €500,000 of plan already, and that can be anywhere in Portugal, and you'll be eligible then for the Golden Visa. There is also the GV Golden Visa 350k, but it's very limited, and it's only for very specific eligible properties. So it has to be a refurbishment project, it has to be located in government selected areas, including historic city centre. So you do need to be very careful when it comes to the 350k and who you're operating with. But there's a straightforward one, which is a 500, and there's with 350k, you need to be very sure on you know, you're on the right property, and you're not just buying a property and you know, you don't get the approval that you need. So talk about Lisbon now, and the market in Lisbon. It's a really wonderful city. We'll go now more into a specific project that we have ourselves, so you can understand some of the projects out there. But it's you know, as we said, it's a capital city. It's where most of the GDP is created. It's also very beautiful, very historic. And because it's a very old city, it's also got very limited land availability, which also helps with the supply and demand. There's very little options for developers to build on because there isn't the land available in the city. It's not a huge city, and it's also on the coast, so you're very limited how the city can sort of expand, which helps with this supply and demand imbalance, together with you know, international demand, local demand, and a low interest rate environment. We see really good growth over the next, actually this year's been, you know, forecasted 5% capital growth by Knight Frank only a few months ago, and that's projected to be, you know, for the next 5 years. So just to talk about one of our opportunities that we have in an excellent area in Lisbon, actually called Graça. It's at one of the highest points of the capital, so it's got incredible views over the ocean and Tagus River. It's in a sort of more traditional district, so it's sort of it's where most people want to be sort of living and working. It's very close to the CBDs. You've got the old historic CBD, and now you've got the new CBD, and we're, you know, 15 minutes drive from each of those business nodes, as well as it being very close to the airport. 16 minutes drive to the new international airport, which has just opened up in Lisbon and now can take a much larger amount of travelers when things open up properly. So with this property, the prices range from 350,000 euros up to plus to 500,000 euros. It's completing in October this year, so not long at all. And it comes with a 5.5% rental guarantee over 2 years from when you complete. So it's an excellent opportunity. If you want to find out more, you can obviously come in touch with us. Here's where it is on the map. So you can see it's very centrally located. You can see the pictures here, the ocean views and so on. Very high finishes. So just to show you again another slide, this Graça is the area you can see in green, and you've got the historic city centre, which is Baxia, and the CBD area, which is this historic CBD area, which is this part here. So extremely close. So in terms of now looking at the second largest city in Portugal, Porto, which we see a lot of growth. This is actually, it's a beautiful city, as you can see from this picture, and it's very stunning. I'll go through now. Will, do you have any more that you'd like to say on Porto?
Porto's got everything, actually. Porto has. It's stunning. A lot of people prefer it to Lisbon in terms of sort of tourism, but it's each to their own, really. But it also has a lot of economic activity. Andrew mentioned that there's a lot of foreign direct investment. There's a lot of startup in Porto because it's the value city as well. Yeah. So you know, it's really the economy is spread across these two cities, you know, quite dramatically. If you look at any other city, that they're contributing a marginal figure. So for us as an investment company primarily, not a lifestyle company, as an investment company, you know, these options are property markets where local people can afford to buy, where local people can afford to rent, and of course there are a huge amount of tourists and sort of, golden visa applications and potential sort of residents that look to move here that are in the market as well. So it has everything, but it has a lot of culture, it has a lot of tourism, as well as the economic activity that the economy is bringing. And if you move to the next slide, Andrew, you'll I think you'll see that we've got some key figures there in terms of sort of unemployment's coming down, in terms of the connectivity of the city, in terms of the transport in the city. The year-on-year growth of the economy is very, very strong. So it's all there, and simply in Porto and Lisbon and a lot of Portugal, there just hasn't been a lot of the financial crisis was really tough, and so a lot of applications to convert buildings and develop buildings were stopped and mothballed in the financial crash. So there's just not been a lot of development that's gone on in any of these locations. I think it'd be fair to say that in Porto you find a few more derelict buildings, you find a little bit more opportunity sort of quite centrally than you do in Lisbon, where it's quite hard to find something like that because it's already been sort of picked up and worked on. But without doubt, there is a supply issue in both of these cities, and that's because you had a declining number of completions coming through up and right from sort of 2009 through to sort of 2015. The country was rebalancing its books, and the banks weren't lending to very easily. So that's one of the reasons why, again, we're quite interested in this. Is the key fundamentals of any investment are supply and demand.
Yeah,
and that's the interesting thing. We're talking about a citizenship by investment topic today, but we're actually very much talking about the numbers, and we're in these cities for the investment reasons. And I think that this is the one residency program where you'll actually cover your cost, and you'll actually cover more than that and make a profit, because the property market is fundamentally in a very, very strong place. So that's why it's very compelling. Andrew, have we got just an example coming up next? Is the next one a...
Yeah, I believe it is an example, yeah. So
our brand new Porto scheme, is it?
Yeah, so this is our new launch.
Yeah. So this is a classic example of a very high-end scheme being built by a very reputable developer, one of the biggest developers in the whole of the country. And it's in an area, if you flick, it's a very high-end scheme. You'll see some more images. If you flick to the next, this is new build scheme. But
yeah,
you see how crisp and contemporary this scheme is. It's an old sardine factory, I think it was, an old canning factory, and it's in the area. You can see there's an original chimney that's being retained, but it's in an area called Matosinhos, which is very close to the port, but also extremely close to the city centre. So Andrew, if you flick onto the next one, then I think we've got a map there. So yeah, so our scheme is literally just set back. You can see where the port is. You can see the port wall, the protected wall for the port. So yeah, exactly where Andrew's there. We're just in this vicinity here, just a little bit further south from there. It's just slightly, So you're very close to some of the primest areas of the city. If you talk about the most expensive pieces of real estate, if you bring your cursor around the coastline down the river, Andrew, this where Andrew is now, this is and then going around the corner, that is where the most expensive properties in Porto are. I think Porto's most expensive property is about where Andrew's cursor is now, right where the sort of river gorge is, very high gorge there. So basically what we've got here is we've got an affordable area, we've got an area that residents are being pushed into, and we've got an area that was typically a little bit more commercial. It was an old canning factory, but it's becoming residential, and all the time we're seeing applications and we're seeing schemes coming up as this slowly becomes much more of a residential area. So really strong investment, a lot of value, and a classic sort of IP Global regeneration investment story in Matosinhos, which is very compelling. And then the great thing is it's coupled with the fact that you've got the ability, if you bought a couple of one beds in here over 500, you could go for the Golden Visa program as well, no problem at all. But look, we didn't want to present product today. We didn't want to get too into the details of that. We wanted to present a little bit about our company, provide you some very basic and simple information about the Golden Visa program. But it is complex. You do need your hand held, and we are able to do that. So in terms of costings, in terms of timescales, in terms of how this all works, then we would ask you to reach out to us directly to take this conversation a little bit further, because it's not everything's relevant for everybody on the call. But we're here to support. We're here to make unemotional investment decisions. and Andrew and I, between the two of us, obviously we can reach out to many countries in sort of North Africa, as well as obviously where Andrew's based, which is in Nairobi.
Fantastic, thank you very much.
So we're doing quite well for time, Andrew, aren't we? No, we're not. We're 40 minutes. No, we're good. We're done. I think we're good.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think we can just say, look, you know, if you've got further questions, we've got more information that we can hand out about investing in Portugal. And if you want more about the Golden Visa, then please do get in touch. I think we've run out of time, but if I haven't seen any questions come through, but if there are any questions at all, then please do email us or give us a call, and we're happy to have a chat and take it forward.
Very good. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everybody, for attending today's webinar. And keep your eyes peeled, because we have many of these running. We have podcasts running at the moment as we look to try and keep connected to our audience and our clients in these times. So you know, we've got a lot of good feedback about how we're putting these together, which is great. So we'll keep them coming. Take care, everybody.
Super, great. All right, all the best. Thanks very much.